Welcome to this video. My name is Muya Kihumba. I'll be taking you through the concept of national income. It would be necessary to look at our previous video on the expenditure approach to national income because the questions that we shall be attempted have got basis on that. In the video, both questions and solutions are provided, but we'll go over them. In our first question, we are told that the national income of we've been given, we are told to compute the GDP and GNP of country X, having been given some data in billions of shillings. Consumption expenditure C 620, investment expenditure I 230, government purchases G 120, exports X 610, imports M 490. Now the two concepts of GNP and GDP are different. GDP does not include net exports, whereas GNP includes net exports. All right. GDP will be looking at the economy in itself, and therefore, without dealing with the outside world, and therefore GDP is C plus I plus G. In our case, when we add up those values, we find that the GDP for country X is 970 billion. Whereas GNP now will have to incorporate net exports. Net exports are X minus M. And this value of net exports can either be positive or negative. So in our case, therefore, when we sum up those 620 plus 230 plus 120 plus 610 minus 490 would give us 1,090 billions. Now, the questions have been asked. In developing countries, GDP is greater than GNP, and you're asked to explain. Why is that? It's because in most developing countries, imports are greater than exports, and therefore the value of net exports will be negative, and GNP thus will be less than GDP. Let's move on to our next question. Again, we've been told the following data relates to a hypothetical economy of country Z. The values are in millions of shillings. We've been told that imports are 3,000, exports 5,000, autonomous consumption 3,000, government spending 24,000, investment 6 million, and you're required to compute the equilibrium national income of country Z, given that the country's marginal propensity to save is 0.4. Now, from our previous video, we know that Y is equal to C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Unlike the previous question where we were given C, in this particular question we are not given C and we must compute it. C is computed as A plus BY. A is autonomous consumption. That is consumption which is not dependent on income. And then BY, which is induced consumption, which is based on our current level of income. B in our case is marginal propensity to consume. That is that portion of our income that we spend on consumption. Now, that portion of income that we do not consume is known as MPS, or marginal propensity to save. Marginal propensity to save, you'd recall from our previous video, plus marginal propensity to consume will always be equal to 1. And therefore, MPC is 1 minus MPS. You note that in this question we've been given marginal propensity to save, 0.4. And therefore, our marginal propensity to consume would be 0.6, and our consumption function will be 30,000 plus 0.6y. Therefore, our y will be our c. Our c is the whole of that consumption function. And then we slot in these other values that we've been given. Plus 6,000, which is government expenditure, plus, plus 6,000, which is investment, plus 24,000, which is government expenditure, plus imports, plus exports, which is 5,000, minus imports, 3,000. And when we put the right terms together, when we sum that one up, we'll have 62,000 plus 0.6y. We're putting the right term together. We end up with value of y being shillings 155 million. And this is the equilibrium national income of country Z. Sometimes national income, the equilibrium level of national income is abbreviated as YE. I would have put an E here, raised to power E, to show that it's in equilibrium. But in the previous questions, that's what we've done. Let's move on to question 3. Again, we've been told the following data relates to the economy of country XYZ. The figures are in millions of shillings. Investment, 4,000. Government spending, 10,000. Autonomous consumption, 8,000. Net exports, 3,600. You notice that in this case, we've been given net exports. And on the solution side, we've said that net exports is X minus M. We had stated that previously. Then we've been told marginal propensity to save again. Marginal propensity to save is 0.4. And we are required, number 1, to show the consumption function and then the equilibrium level of the economy. We state that for an open economy, y is equal to c plus I plus g plus x minus m, with net exports, like we said, being x minus m. The first question required us to compute the consumption function, which is c, which is a linear function, which is c is equal to a plus by. We've been given a, autonomous consumption. We do not have b because what they give us is marginal propensity to save. And we said marginal propensity to consume is 1 minus marginal propensity to save, which is 1 minus 0.4, which should give us 0.6. And therefore, our consumption function is 8,000, the autonomous consumption, plus 0.6y, which is induced consumption. This is our consumption function. And from there, we could compute our national income at equilibrium. We substitute for our values in this equation. We know that C is 8,000 plus 0.6y. Investment expenditure is 4,000. Government expenditure is 10,000. And net exports is 3,600. And therefore, this would give us y to be 25,600 plus 0.6y. 0.4y, when we substitute and we put the right terms together, it will be 25,600. When we divide both sides by 0.4, we get that our y at equilibrium, national income at equilibrium, will be shilling 64 million. Turning to question number 4, almost a similar question. And perhaps you could look at it and compute it. Take a minute. I believe you've been able to look at this question, very similar to the previous one. The only thing is that in this case, you've been given marginal propensity to consume as 0.6, and therefore will not have problems with our consumption function. This here is our consumption function, plus our investment expenditure, plus our government spending, plus our net exports. And our equilibrium will be, national income at equilibrium, it will be 52.5 million shillings, or 52,500 million shillings. Let's move on to question 4. Question 5, not 4. You've done 4. Again here, we are told that the consumption function of a hypothetical economy is given as follows. C is 50 plus 0.75 YD. Now, this YD is disposable income. All right, disposable income is computed as y minus t. Tax rate, which is t, is 25%, and the required one to compute marginal propensity to save, and 2, the level of consumption assuming income of 500 shillings. Now, the consumption function is a linear function, which should always be in this format. C is equal to A plus BY. But this cannot be the consumption function, because you notice that at the end we've been given disposable income. And when you substitute what we have, we'll say we've been told that T is 50 plus 0.75 YD. YD is Y minus T. So this is 50 plus 0.75 into bracket Y minus 0.25. 0.25 is the tax rate, 25%, which should give us that 50 plus 0.75 minus 0.1875, having opened these brackets, will give us the consumption expenditure as C is 49.8125 plus 0.75Y. The question asked about marginal propensity to save. Our marginal propensity to consume is 0.5, and therefore our marginal propensity to save is 1 minus MPC, which will give us a value of 0.25. The question also asked about the level of consumption assuming income of 500 shillings. All we need to do is to substitute for this Y. Y we've been told is 500 shillings. We simply multiply that, and we find that the level of consumption will be 424.8125 shillings. Our question 6 introduces a new concept, the concept of the multiplier. We'll talk about the concept of the multiplier in a different video. But for now, the question says, the marginal propensity to consume MPC for a hypothetical economy is 0.75. The level of investment in this economy increases by 50 million shillings. Holding other factors constant, calculate 1, change in equilibrium level of income, change in autonomous spending, induced change in consumption. Like I've mentioned, this question introduces the concept of the multiplier. And this concept of the multiplier holds it that if we increase investment or government spending by a certain amount, the level of national income will increase by a bigger value than the initial value of the increased spending. And this is largely because of the multiplier concept. All right. Now, the multiplier concept, which we shall abbreviate as alpha, is computed as 1 over 1 minus marginal propensity to consume, which we can also say alpha is 1 over marginal propensity to save. In this case, our multiplier will be 1 over 1 minus 0.5, which is 1 over 0.25, and this will give us 4. And this would mean that if we increased, say, our investment by a certain percentage, in our case 50 million, the total national income will increase fourfold, will increase by the amount of the multiplier, and therefore the change in equilibrium level of income will be 4 times 50 million shillings, which will be 200 million shillings. You notice that our national income have changed by a bigger value than the value of the initial level of investment. What about autonomous spending? We said autonomous spending is that spending that is not dependent on our current level of income. And therefore, the expectations are autonomous spending will not change because it's not dependent on income. What will change is induced consumption, which we said induced consumption is B times Y. B is marginal propensity to consume. And in our case, it will be 0.75 times 20, which will give us 150. So our induced change in consumption will be 150 million shillings. Like I mentioned in a different video, we'll look at the concept of the multiplier. Let's move on to a different question. We are told The data provided below represents national income model of a certain economy in billions of shillings. Y, as usual, is C plus I plus G. C is 100 plus 0.8 YD. YD we said is disposable income. And YD is given by Y minus T. T is 10 plus 0.11 I is 50, G is 30. And we are required to compute the equilibrium level of national income, consumption, and taxes. We've already mentioned that YD is disposable income. And if I would substitute for Y minus T here, I'll have 100 plus 0.8 Y minus tax, which is 10 plus 0.1 Y. Very fast, opening this inner bracket here, this sign will change. And therefore, we shall have 100. It's not written, so you may want to write it down. We'll have 100 plus 0.8 open bracket Y minus 10 minus 0.1 Y close brackets. Now, Y minus 0.1 Y will give us 0.9. So it will be 100 plus 0.8 into bracket 0.9 minus 10 close bracket. If we open that bracket again, we'll have 100 plus 0.72. 0.72 is 0.8 times 0.9 minus 8. 8 is 0.8 times minus 10, which will give us 10. Simplifying that further will give us 92 plus 0.72 Y. And this is our consumption function. What then is our equilibrium level of national income? We simply substitute for those values in this equation here. We know that our C is 92 plus 0.7 Y plus our investment expenditure 50 plus government spending 30. And when we sum up all those, Y will be 614.4286 billions. Equilibrium level of expenditure, we simply write it as we've put here. Consumption expenditure at equilibrium would be equal to 92 plus 0.72 times equilibrium level of income. Equilibrium level of income, we had computed it previously. So we'll compute, we'll multiply by this figure, and it will give us 534.3886 billions. We do the same for taxes. All right. So taxes at equilibrium will be 10 plus 0.1 national income at equilibrium. We should simply multiply this 0.1 by the value we got here, and this will be our taxes at equilibrium. Taxes at equilibrium, therefore, will be 81.4429 billions of shillings. To our last question, we've been told it's very similar, only that this now incorporates the outside world. We are told that the data provided below represents the national income model of a hypothetical economy in trillions of shillings. C is 50 plus 0.6 Y minus T. I is equal to 35. G is equal to 25. T is equal to 20. X is equal to 30. M inputs is 8 plus 0.1 Y. And you're required to compute the equilibrium level of national income, the equilibrium level of consumption expenditure, and the multiplier. Now, we say here that for an open economy, Y should be equal to C plus I plus G plus X minus M. All right? C would have to get our C first. It's 50 plus 0.6 Y minus T. We know T has been given as 20. So this is 50 plus 0.6 into brackets Y minus 20. So this would give us our consumption function. C is equal to 38 plus 0.6 Y. So then, what is the equilibrium level of national income, YE? Again, we substitute. It will be C plus I plus G plus X minus M. This is in brackets because you are minusing it. Opening this bracket, the sign changes. Okay? And moving the right term together, we are left with 0.5y is equal to 120. And therefore, national income at equilibrium will be 240 trillion shillings. What's the equilibrium consumption expenditure? We've been told CE is 38 plus 0.6 YE. We simply substitute for YE, and our consumption expenditure will be 182 billion. By the way, if you wished, you could even compute import at equilibrium, and you could do that at your own time. And finally, the question asked about the multiplier, which we said is always 1 over marginal propensity to save. We always abbreviate it as alpha, and our multiplier will be 2.5 times. We end at that point. Until the next video, kwaherini.